Have you ever stared at your phone screen in the dead of night, scrolling through success stories, billionaires, and entrepreneurs, wondering why your own life feels like it's stuck in neutral? You set that ambitious alarm for 5 a.m., pumped up with visions of transforming your routine, only to slap the snooze button repeatedly until 8 a.m. rolls around, leaving you groggy, guilty, and already feeling like the days slipped away. We've all been there, promising ourselves tomorrow will be different, but tomorrow looks suspiciously like today. And here's the kicker. It's not just about lost time, it's about lost opportunity. What if I told you that the quiet hours before dawn could be the secret weapon rewriting your financial story? Picture this. You're not alone in this struggle. Studies from the National Sleep Foundation show that over 50% of Americans hit snooze at least once a day, and a whopping 35% do it multiple times. But while you're catching those extra Z's, the world of wealth building is already in motion. Successful people like Apple CEO Tim Cook, who rises at 3:45 a.m., or Oprah Winfrey, who's up by 5 a.m. for meditation and planning, aren't superhuman. They've cracked the code on using those early hours to stack the odds in their favor. And no, this isn't about shaming night owls or forcing you into an unnatural rhythm. It's about reclaiming control in a world full of distractions. Because your financial future, it's often sealed before 7 a.m., not by some stroke of luck, not by innate talent or a privileged background, but by the deliberate choices you make in those serene, distraction-free moments when the rest of the world is still asleep. We tend to romanticize wealth as something that happens in flashy boardrooms, high-stakes trading floors, or buzzing startup garages. But let's get real. True wealth is forged in the shadows, in the privacy of your own discipline, long before the spotlight hits. It's built in silence, one intentional step at a time. This isn't just another motivational pep talk about waking up early. Far from it. This is a deep dive into how 5 a.m. habits can compound into real financial freedom. And to make it hit home, I'm going to share the story of one ordinary guy named Thomas who turned those early hours into a lifeline that pulled him from financial quicksand to solid ground. But buckle up, because this isn't about feel-good inspiration. It's about cold, hard math. The kind of math that shows how small daily investments in yourself can multiply into life-changing returns. Let me paint a vivid picture of Thomas's starting point. At 32 years old, he was grinding away as a night security guard at a dusty warehouse in a forgotten industrial town on the outskirts of the Midwest. Think flickering fluorescent lights, endless patrols through aisles of stacked crates, and the hum of machinery that never quite shuts off. He wasn't lazy, he worked hard, showed up on time every shift, never gripped about the long hours or the bone-chilling cold on winter nights. He did everything right, or so he thought. But despite pouring in 60 hours a week, he was still flat broke. Sound familiar? Maybe you've felt that same grind, clocking in, clocking out, and wondering why your bank account never seems to grow. That's the harsh reality check most of us miss early on. Hard work alone doesn't guarantee wealth. It's a myth perpetuated by well-meaning advice from our parents or bosses. Just put in the hours and it'll pay off. But the data tells a different story. According to a report from the Economic Planning Institute, the bottom 90% of American workers have seen their wages stagnate or decline in real terms over the last 4 decades, even as productivity has soared. You can hustle non-stop and still end up financially trapped. Why? Because income by itself doesn't shift your economic position. It's skills that do. Ownership of assets, leverage through knowledge and networks. Without those, you're just trading time for money, and time is a finite resource. For Thomas, survival was a monthly tightrope walk. His paycheck barely covered the basics. Rent gobbled up nearly half, leaving him in a cramped one-bedroom apartment with peeling wallpaper and unreliable heat. Utilities chipped away another chunk, electricity for those late-night shifts, water that always seemed to run hot only when he didn't need it. Then came food, quick, cheap meals like ramen or fast food, because who has time or energy to cook after a graveyard shift? Transportation? An old beater car that guzzled gas and threatened to break down at the worst moments. And don't forget those small emergencies, a flat tire, a doctor's visit, or helping out a family member that wiped out whatever scraps were left. Zero savings, zero investments, no ladder to climb. Every month, it was back to square one, like a financial Groundhog Day. This is what I call the survival loop, a vicious cycle where income flows in just to get devoured by expenses, leaving nothing to compound. And without compounding, wealth is literally impossible. Remember Einstein's famous quip? He called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it. In Thomas's case, he was paying it dearly through high-interest credit card debt from those emergencies. A study by the Federal Reserve reveals that 40% of Americans can't cover a $400 unexpected expense without borrowing or selling something. That's the trap. No buffer means every hiccup sets you back further. But everything changed one crisp autumn morning at 5 a.m. Thomas was standing outside a rundown rural clinic, the kind with faded signs and overworked staff, where his mother had collapsed from years of stress and exhaustion, juggling 2 jobs to keep the family afloat. Watching her hooked up to monitors, frail and worn down at just 58, hit him like a freight train. He realized he couldn't magically boost his income overnight. No fairy godmother was handing out raises. But he could invest in himself. Right there, in that moment of quiet desperation, he met an older businessman waiting for his own appointment. The man, sensing Thomas's turmoil, shared a simple yet profound formula. Dedicate 2 hours every morning before the world stirs to building your future. Let's crunch the numbers, because as I said, this is about math, not magic. 2 hours a day adds up to 14 hours a week. That's about 60 hours a month, or over 700 hours a year. Divide that by an 8-hour workday, and you're looking at roughly 90 extra workdays annually. Nearly 3 full months of focused, uninterrupted self-investment. Most people squander that golden time on endless scrolling through social media. The average American spends 2.5 hours a day on apps like TikTok and Instagram, per eMarketer stats, binge-watching shows, or just lounging in bed. But the wealthy? They treat those hours like prime real estate for
76% of millionaires wake up at least 3 hours before their workday starts, using that time for reading, exercise, and planning. Thomas didn't waste a second. He structured his 5 a.m. routine with military precision to maximize impact. The first hour, pure skill building, zero fluff. No motivational podcasts or feel-good videos. This was targeted learning for an income-generating skill. He picked accounting and spreadsheets. Why? Because every business, from mom-and-pop shops to Fortune 500 giants, runs on numbers. Financial literacy is the universal language of opportunity. If you can decode balance sheets, track cash flows, and spot inefficiencies, you're not just employable, you're invaluable. Skills like these raise your earning ceiling dramatically. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that roles requiring financial analysis skills pay a median of $85,000 annually, compared to $35,000 for entry-level security jobs. But Thomas didn't stop there. The second hour was split for sustainability. 30 minutes of exercise to fortify his body, simple things like push-ups, jogging in place, or body weight squats in his tiny living room. Why bother? Because your health is your ultimate financial asset. Poor health racks up medical bills. The average American spends $12,900 on healthcare yearly, per CMS data, saps energy and kills productivity. Fatigue isn't just a feeling, it's a wealth killer. Then the remaining 30 minutes went to reviewing his finances, tracking every penny spent, planning the week's budget, and brainstorming growth steps. Most folks avoid peering at their bank statements like it's a horror movie, afraid of what they'll see. But wealthy people obsess over metrics. As management guru Peter Drucker said, what gets measured gets managed. By facing his numbers head-on, Thomas started spotting leaks, that daily coffee run adding up to $100 a month, unnecessary subscriptions draining $50. Now, let's be honest, the beginning sucked. The first week, agonizing. His body screamed for more sleep, his mind wandered, and doubts crept in. Am I really cut out for this? The first month felt like climbing a mountain in flip-flops. Waking before sunrise seemed downright unnatural, especially after night shifts. But here's where science backs the habit. Research from the Journal of Biological Rhythms shows consistent wake times help reset your circadian rhythm, making early rising easier over time. Around day 20, Thomas noticed the shift. His brain adapted, focus sharpened, and what started as grit turned into groove. Discipline wasn't a chore anymore. It became who he was. By month 2, the payoffs rolled in. He'd completed online certifications through free platforms like Coursera and Khan Academy, things like QuickBooks Basics and Excel Mastery. He could now build budgets that actually stuck, read financial reports like a pro, and understand cost controls that save companies thousands. Month 3? That's when he created real value. Back at the warehouse during his shifts, he spotted glaring inventory issues, mismatched counts leading to losses, inefficient tracking causing delays. Instead of shrugging it off, he built a simple spreadsheet tool to automate it. Boom! Losses dropped by 15%, operations smoothed out, and his boss took notice. That single act flipped the script. Thomas went from being a replaceable laborer, paid by the hour no matter how hard he worked, to a value creator. Labor gets a fixed wage, value gets rewarded. Soon, whispers turned into an offer, a day-shift accounting role at the company, double the salary, benefits, stability. Was it luck? Heck no. It was skill compounding in action, brewed in those 5 a.m. hours. But the transformation didn't end with a better paycheck. The 5 a.m. habit reshaped his entire trajectory. Let's break it down step by step, because this is where the magic of momentum kicks in. First, skill plus time plus consistency equals increased income. His new role opened doors to bonuses and raises. Second, increased income minus controlled expenses equals investable capital. Thomas ruthlessly avoided lifestyle creep, that sneaky trap where you spend more as you earn more. No fancy car upgrades or lavish dinners. He kept expenses flat.
A Vanguard study shows that the average millionaire saves 20% of their income. Thomas aimed higher, stashing 30%. Third, investable capital times time equals financial freedom. He built an emergency fund covering 6 months of expenses, then funneled the rest into low-cost index funds via apps like Vanguard or Fidelity. Why index funds? Because they beat 85% of actively managed funds over time, per S&P Dow Jones Indices data, with minimal fees. Most dream of fat investment returns without the foundation, but you can't invest what you don't have. Thomas nailed the basics first, boosting earning power, then savings, then assets. Within a year, his net worth went from negative, thanks to debt, to positive. He paid off credit cards, invested steadily, and watched compounding work its wonders. At a conservative 7% annual return, the stock market's historical average, $200 monthly investments grow to over $100,000 in 20 years. That's not hype, that's math. What made those 5 a.m. hours so powerful? Zero distractions. No pinging emails, no urgent calls, no social media vortex. Willpower peaks early, per psychologist Roy Baumeister's research on ego depletion. Decision fatigue builds throughout the day, making evenings less productive for big-picture work. Mornings are for leverage, Proactive tasks that build long-term wealth, not reactive firefighting that just keeps you afloat. Over time, Thomas evolved beyond survival. He thought like an owner, setting quarterly goals, e.g., learn investing basics by Q2, reviewing portfolios monthly, and reinvesting in skills like advanced finance courses. He protected his sleep fiercely, lights out by 9 p.m., knowing a rested body fuels peak performance. He even moved his mom to a cozy, stress-free apartment, breaking the generational cycle of struggle. Stability bred momentum, and momentum snowballed. This isn't a fairy tale about overnight riches. It's about financial momentum, the kind that trumps raw intensity every time. Small, consistent actions outpace sporadic bursts of motivation. A Harvard Business Review study on habits confirms it. Routines built over 66 days on average become automatic, leading to lasting change. So pause for a second and ask yourself, are you a morning person, or is that just an excuse? The real question is, do you crave financial control? Control over your time, your choices, your legacy? It's forged in those quiet hours when the world's not watching, demanding, or judging. Here's your challenge, your personal call to action. Set that alarm for 5 a.m. tomorrow. Pick one income-boosting skill. Maybe coding if you're tech-curious. Demand for developers is up 25% per LinkedIn. Copywriting for marketing gigs, or even real estate basics via free YouTube channels. Commit to 90 days. Track your time in a simple journal, log your spending in an app like Mint, and measure your growth weekly. What skill will you choose? How will you structure your 2 hours? Imagine a year from now, a beefier bank account, sharper skills, and a version of you that doesn't hit snooze because you have become unstoppable. Wealth isn't born from dramatic windfalls or viral moments. It's nurtured quietly, daily, in discipline, during those early hours when no one's applauding. Will you join the builders? Will you be awake for your own revolution? The clock's ticking. Make it count.